So if you could take a picture of this, the reason why I did that is I figured most of us are my age or younger. I'm at the top end of, I mean, low end of 60. And I thought, we don't think of these things unless we have younger clients. And I've never had younger clients. But now when I say younger clients, it's 30-year-olds. I used to think about gamers as 15 and 12 and whatever else. But even 40-year-olds are gamers, including professionals. So case number 3, and we'll give you 15 minutes to look at this, and I'll divide you all into a small group. So there is an avid gamer. You got into some games that may contain violent killing. I mean, that's what a lot of times these gamers are. Violent killing, nudity, or some kind of sexual stuff in nature. You might not want to be caught playing this game in front of your children in the electronic era, or colleagues for that matter. Just in the privacy of your home, you're playing and you enjoy it. Well, Electra, who is 20, isn't that a cool name for a young girl? Electra, who's 24 years old, woman is your client and is an avid gamer. Her inability to focus is the issue in college. So she comes to you, and you're the person on the first paragraph, the first bullet. You are the avid gamer. And what possible problems can we have with this? So I'm going to find that little icon and find break rooms. There we go. You should be in your rooms. Sorry about that.
Ravi, for some reason, I didn't get an invite to a group.
Same here.
I did not either.
I didn't either.
I didn't either.
I didn't either.
Let's fire the cruiser. He has never called it back. There's a chance in hell we're not getting it.
I hear some background noise. If somebody could mute theirs, that's great. Does anybody else need to be admitted?
Yeah.
Yes, there's several of us.
Yeah, I do that, Robbie, too. Like you say, we're not in. There's a lot of us not in.
Brian,
Yeah.
please call extension 12.
Unassigned 42.
I'm not in the chat room either, Kim Miller.
I'm not in either. It's Helen Snyder.
It says it has put everybody in a room.
My breakout room just had myself in it.
So let me close this
Yeah, I didn't get in
room
there
and
either.
start over. Breakout rooms. It's going to close here in 40 some seconds, and then I'll open it again. Now, if worse comes to worse, we will not have a breakout room. I'll find out in 30 or 20 seconds or so. And Pamela got admitted in. Open all rooms. Okay, let's try it again. It says all rooms are open.
Were we still supposed to be in rooms because
We just
Tyra
came out of our room.
and threw
Yeah.
us out? Yeah.
Yeah, just all of you came out of your room and I reassigned.
You
I still
reassigned.
have not received an invite.
Yeah,
Okay.
don't have that either.
Yeah, me neither, Robbie.
Me either.
Let's see
I
what's
ain't
going
either.
on.
Me neither. I don't think.
I don't even.
Me either.
The dominoes
I
are
haven't
falling.
either.
Looks
Folks that
like
use the browser don't get a breakout room. If you're using the browser version of Zoom and not the client version of Zoom, your breakout room is the main room.
So we're all in the breakout room.
I
now?
was assigned a breakout room last time.
Yeah, I was assigned also, but not this time.
Yeah, I'm using the Zoom app and it worked in the breakout room last time, but not this time. It lets me in it, but it says I'm the only person in there.
I'm on the browser as well, and last time I was able to be in a chat room, so.
It put me in one with one other person, but then it kicked me out. And whenever I went back in, it put me in a room by myself.
That's what it did to me.
Well,
All
should
right,
we
I'm
all
ready.
just discuss this?
Yeah.
Just since we're here.
So I'm not a gamer, but I talk with students who are. But like in this case or in this scenario, would it be problematic if there were these things of like supporting violence and killing and things of that nature, aggressive nature, and then you relate to your client with them being like, oh yeah, I really like that game too, I play it all the time, and like, you know, then you get into talking about these scenarios. Would it be, I mean, I would think that wouldn't be okay just because it would be kind of normalizing those behaviors that you would normally be trying to provide opportunity for there to be redirection on something like that.
I don't know if I agree. Video games contain this, just like, you know, some rock songs contain sexual natures or what movies. It's part of our culture. This isn't her reason for coming. It may intersect if it's related to her inattentiveness issues, being that she's not doing her other tasks because she's so wrapped up in this game.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily find my role to be one of moralizing to my client or judging them based on this. If it's not their issue that they're seeing me for, other than checking to see how it might be intersecting with whatever the, you know, with what her issue is. But I would also have a problem with providing her therapy only related to focusing in college. Does she have an issue with focus, with attentiveness, and is that her issue? Then I would see that as a behavioral health issue to address with her. But just what, I mean, she may not like the class. So it seems like there's a lot to parse out with this, but the least of my concern would be what video games she's playing or even the nature of them, unless she was coming with a sexual issue or a issue of aggression or, you know, some kind of acting out issue, which I would be concerned about her either reality testing or capacity to differentiate between what she's playing and her real life. Am I making sense in that regard? I mean,
I think so. I actually had a student one time that was very similar in what you just described. She wasn't in class because she was staying up throughout the night to perform the duties of the character she had in her game.
oh,
And so, we didn't focus on the game at all. It was very much so redirected to like, okay, what are your priorities? And trying to stay focused to, what can she do to meet those goals? Which again, wasn't necessarily had anything to do about the game specifically,
yeah.
just more about her time and things like that.
Okay, so let me.
My thought is, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Tina.
I was just going to say, my thought is, what if they are playing, online and actually they've actually played one another. A lot of people play these games and they're online and they're playing with people, and in other countries even sometimes. So it's possible that maybe they've been online at the same time.
That was my
game.
That was my concern too, because they could be playing together and not even know it.
Aha! There's my monkey wrench.
But that's like anything. That's a boundary issue that you as the therapist have to keep. I mean, you're not, as Jean said, going to be focused on the game per se. Probably if you're playing these games, you have an avatar or something that masks it. So you may not even know that you're playing. And if she mentions the game, I think where you need to do the boundary issues, you're not going to get sucked into talking about the game and the specifics of the game. You're going to keep it focused to her like you always do when there is some type of, they're butting against a boundary, either a belief you have, an interest that you have. If you have an avid reader, you don't talk about the novels you're reading with your book club. I mean, that's just, I see it as just establishing the boundaries, since you're an avid gamer as well, and be sure you're not straying beyond those.
I agree with Ellen. As a social worker, from a standpoint, it's the difference between disclosing too much information of your personal life versus taking care of your client.
Yeah, what we have to watch out here is transference, counter-transference, to make sure we're just that we end up becoming friends, bonding over a game, rather than maybe using it as rapport building. Oh, that interests you too, but we have to be careful of that counter-transference.
So here's where I think I have watched lots of weird movies, and that's my hobby. I watch all kinds of, some of the scary ones, some are all these kind of off-beaten ones and sci-fi and all this kind of stuff. So here's what I was presenting. The monkey wrench I wanted to put in is what Lynette has mentioned. You both have avatars. You do not know that she has figured out your avatar. And now she's playing games with you on the game, on the internet, but you do not know that. And can that possibly happen? Yes. And these kids are much smarter and astute to figure out, and if you're the 40 or some year old or gamer, you're already way too behind on this, how you play the game. So
yeah, I would feel like
the monkey wrenches.
I feel like if you knew that, you should probably excuse yourself as the counselor to say, this is because I feel like you're in the same community, the same environment.
So
I don't think you should be counseling.
Lynette, what I was saying was the client figures it out, but you haven't figured it out.
But I know, but even ahead of time, the fact that she's a gamer, I feel like because it would be too easy. I don't know. If that's what you do, she does it, you probably should separate from that.
Okay, so one of the things we could casually do as we are doing the intake is, so you're a big gamer. Tell me some of the games that you play, and so you get an idea of which one she's playing. And if you're on the same one, you might not want to be there for a while. Just excuse yourself, conflict of interest, and you can still be her therapist and help her with her issues. And just don't get into the game because they're much smarter than us and they can figure you out. That's my fear.
I think that gets a little tricky though, like in rural areas, because you may only have one counselor or a couple counselors available, within a reasonable drive. So if you can't see anybody that is a gamer because there might be a conflict, then that puts our clients at, in a bad situation because they may not be able to get services.
True. I mean, there are like,
I'd say that don't play these type of games.
yeah, and there are varieties of these situations that if we're not astute, we might inadvertently be vulnerable online. I mean, they can get into online and get your stuff in so many different ways. And so what we put online, just basically try to be careful.
And then I would
I guess I'm struggling a little bit with this. I mean, I get it's a modern problem, but at the same time, I'm struggling. This is the same issue many people had. If they have a person with a substance abuse issue and they go to a bar and they would see that person out. I mean, as again, a boundary issue. It doesn't mean if you go out for an occasional drink with your friends that you have to drop all your clients or never go out socially in a small town because you might bump into someone, because inevitably it's going to happen. And I think in this case, I mean, you're right, they're savvy. If I want to really dig, is my counselor playing this game? I maybe could find out. But if I don't ever mention that I'm a gamer and my avatar or my name or whatever is discreet from me, I mean, they're really going to have to do some digging. And why would they do that if I haven't mentioned that I play the game? That's where I'm struggling with it.
And
I mean,
that's what keeps them in that game. There's a sense of addiction to want to dig and want to find out and want to know who that other person is. And if you become an important person in your life, they're going to go onto Facebook and whatever Twitter or whatever account, they're going to try to find what you're saying. It's just today, modern day, you're right. It's a modern day problem.
Ravi, if I was understanding you correctly, I think you were suggesting that if I was the gamer, that I would bow out of usage of that game for a while until my client and I were finished with, et cetera, so there would not be any opportunity for that kind of exploration on the client's part or what have you.
Yes. I mean, it's just like conflict of interest. As soon as you suspect that there might be a conflict of interest, you want to excuse yourself immediately, because ultimately who pulls the plug first it has to be the professional, because they're not held to that responsibility.
In video games, though, can't you have like private groups to where you pick your friend groups of who you play with and you just don't open it to the whole public?
Yep.
So if you do that, then you're playing with people that you know, then there's no conflict of interest and you're still playing the game. Just during that time frame, don't play publicly.
Yes, and my suggestion here is there are open sources and people play across the country, across the world, and you never know who the other one is. And they may present themselves as a male, but they might be a female. They may present themselves as a trans person or an animal. Well, I don't know. I don't play these games. I'm too old. So,
But the other thing you've said, Ravi, is this person is taking steps because they don't even want their children to know and their colleagues, they don't want to be caught playing this game. So that implies some level of care that they've probably taken in playing this game. So you're right, they could be extremely cautious and just not play during taking this client. The other suggestion was they could be sure they're only playing with their private groups and their settings are such that it is private, which probably, given their feelings about not wanting anyone to know, it probably already is. And I mean, and so again, they're perceiving a potential conflict and they're setting the boundaries clearly so that it doesn't develop into a therapeutic issue, a transference or an issue.
Yeah, and I think basically the bottom line that I'm trying to point out here is the minute you figure something out or you have some doubt, pull the plug just to be sure, so you're not vulnerable on the electronic stuff. So what I'm gonna do is, now, what do you do with this electronic stuff? I'd never heard of this stuff, or I didn't know there could be problems like this. Well, ACA has Section H. Section H has to do with technology and social media. It is inevitable that this has a potential to expand one's practice of counseling, which is all of us have done that in 2020. And it is the therapist's responsibility to know the laws of the state where the client resides, as well as yours. Therapist needs to make secure confidentiality online. That's your responsibility. What are your plans if the line is hacked? How would you know that? Do you have some expert who can every so often check and see parameters or look at your computer and see if you've been hacked? And how many times that my credit card has been hacked? Oh my gosh, 5, 6 times in 10 years. And my one email is on the black web. Is that what they call it? The black web? Something like that. Yeah. And I didn't know that. My bank, Capital One, emails me and says, your email is on the black web, so you need to get rid of that. And so then I had to search through. I didn't know how many places I had used that. And so those are some of the things just to be aware of. So our ACA is trying to keep up with the technology, and I would encourage for people to take more classes on how you could be more savvy and protect yourself professionally. Yeah, here's some of the things that the Skypes and Zooms and all that kind of stuff, they try to make it as secure as possible. Why would someone access on your behalf? Inform the client how information is stored and secured. Informed consent must include risks and benefits of the electronic age. Provide e-links to your board on your website if you have it. I don't have one, I just do word of mouth, or other certifications for verification. So I think down the future, what I see, this electronic thing is going to be more and more part of our practice. And I think there's going to be guidelines and things that will come up and say, these are some of the cautions and precautions that you have to take in order to secure your line so that somebody isn't hacked. I mean, I don't think it's there yet. We're just slowly beginning. I think it's only going to get more complicated as technology grows. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? And we don't even know in 20 years what it's going to look like. Probably nothing like what we have right now. I mean, 2 years ago, we wouldn't have said there would be 100 people sitting together in 100 different places and looking at one presentation. I mean, we're miles and miles and miles away, many of us. So we have case number 4. I'm going to leave it up. I think I'm not going to try to split you guys in groups. It didn't work last time, so we'll just leave it the way it is. Okay. So what potential issues might rise? And obviously you can tell there is code A.6.D that addresses it. So somebody's going to look that up, aren't they?
Well, I think obviously confidentiality possibly, but also it's something I brought up in the first case study that was brought up was triangulation.
Ooh, yeah.
is a real concern when you suddenly bring somebody in.
Yes, thank you.
One thing that came to my mind was, are you qualified to work with couples?
Oh, are you certified in that? Do you have a license, or do you have some extensive education to do? We could say couples therapy, marital therapy. Good question. So if somebody has never done it, and this is the first time they're going to do it, immediately the professional judgment is, I'm not qualified to do that. You need to go to somebody else. But if you have been seeing couples and you may not have a AAMFT, but you've gone to lots of workshops and you feel comfortable and you have been successful, we only help half of the couple, if not less, to stay together or be together. I don't know the real statistics, but yeah, that would work out okay. And you could also disclose that. I'm not a board certified, I'm not a AAMFT certified, but I just thought I'd let you know if you still feel comfortable. And we'll just keep this on the table.
There could also be some billing issues that we're going to want to make sure that they're aware of. I mean, is he going to still be the identified patient and she's just coming in to join his sessions, or are we changing this to a couples
excellent point
session, and whether they have coverage for that or not?
Excellent point.
Well, when this has come up with my practice, I refer the other person out to do the couples thing. And I'll have to know there could be a possible bias. Because of that bias, I won't see someone unless I see them from the very beginning. So to avoid the biases that can come into play, the triangulation issues, I always refer them to another counselor.
Yeah, if you accept this client down the road in a 2, 3, 4 sessions, if you kind of push Bonnie a little bit, then she's going to say, well, you two are ganging up against me. And we talked about that triangulating, and it doesn't happen until she feels like she's threatened a little bit. And that's when the distrust begins. And then say, you two guys, what did you talk about me before I came into the session? Definitely a problem. So we have about 20 minutes. I will share with you. Yes.
I have a question on the previous case before this, the avid gamer.
Okay.
We talked about it. There were a few people in the group starting out, and then only a couple other people when we went back into group there. But I was just wanting, a little discussion on that one, because, maybe I missed it or something. I didn't get that when I was in the group, this breakout group, if you all talked about that together.
Does anybody want to jump in?
What was it?
Just case 3, the avid gamer, when I was in small group. I don't know if you guys had the final discussion on that one as far as what all the issues were, because we were not in here. We were in our breakout group, so I missed the issues and the discussion with everybody, I guess.
Does anybody want to jump in? I can talk, but I'd rather have somebody else take a turn. If you could summarize a little bit.
There was a little bit of trouble with the breakout groups, so people got kicked back into the main area. So we all kind of just discussed it there. We talked about maybe the counselors' self-disclosure and what limits to put on that, and maybe modifying their gaming to accommodate the client. And anybody else?
There was a good bit of discussion about the fact that a lot of those characters are not identifiable as people. So that would maybe not present as much of a conflict.
One other thing that we talked about was that if somehow your client figured you out in a game that you have a different avatar, then they have something on you. Mm-hmm. And you may not realize that, but the younger people are savvy enough and ways that they can figure out who you might be in their game, if you are in their game. And one other suggestion was, if you're an avid gamer as a therapist, for that, and one of the intake question would be, well, what kind of games do you play? What's your favorite one? Are there any characters you want to disclose? Usually, most of these people they want anonymity online, and that's how they want to play a game. And one suggestion was, stick with your group that you know, that you play usually with, so everybody knows that they're who is in that group. That way you're not open to any kind of vulnerability online. But just assume if they start liking you as a therapist, they're going to look you up on any footprint that you may have online, Facebook, whatever else.
It just seems like no one is, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. It appears as though we need to also focus on the fact that this is affecting her life, the 24-year-old, and how it's impacting her ability to focus in college. And I just think she needs to, yes, it's nice as you may have found your counselor, but she also needs to really focus on the time that she spends playing these games. She needs to be set on some kind of rigid behavioral plan with some contingencies. And the biggest contingency is she might not pass her schooling. But it appears as though there needs to be a rheology check for her.
Yes.
So rigid behavioral plan, some cognitive restructuring again, and also some contingencies placed here for her.
Tina, was that helpful?
Yes, thank you, guys.
Sure. Okay, we talked about that. So there is a code.
Yeah, I wanted to know what was that code exactly. I was trying to look it up, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I did too, and I have failed to add that
Okay.
in. And I'm sorry about that, but you can find that online easily
Okay.
enough.
What was it? It was 2A.
A.6.D.
Okay, it's the same as this one?
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know how I missed that one slide. Let me talk a little bit about, so we're done with this thing. I'm going to stop sharing. And we'll go to view to the gallery. Okay. So some of the cultural changes that they have made within the last few years is that we realize there are people, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. There are people who are from different cultures. You know, we don't see that much here in Charleston, West Virginia. However, in larger cities and metropolitan areas, we see people of different culture. And I had talked a little bit earlier, some of the people might want to bring somebody with them, an interpreter or a support person. And usually we're squeamish about that because of what they're going to say, what they're going to hear, what they might share with other people. You can't, can you really get them to be sign into the confidentiality? Whatever happens only stays here in the office and not. How does that work? And that's still in the gray area. I think you can get them to sign up, but your organization will have to work on that if you have not. And if you've ever had to have like a sign language person and an interpreter that comes with them, definitely they're kind of professional, I would assume, or they're hired to do this. So that might be good to keep in mind that not just the person client, but the other person that's there also for interpretation for that person might have to sign a confidentiality. There's some things to think about that I, in my, when I'm working out or when I'm daydreaming, I keep thinking about all these squirmy little things that we don't think about that end up being part of our life or could end up being part of our life. As you know, there's Asian communities and even mine. I don't know why I'm not Asian. I was born in India, but only in America, I'm not Asian. Asian means you have to be Japanese, Korean, or Vietnamese or something, but we all come from the same continent. So, but when people refer to me, they say I'm Indian. I said, oh, okay, that somehow we're separated from another. I'm just talking out loud here about how we are as a culture.
I think they didn't know. I think they weren't educated. I think they didn't really learn until Carmelita Harris became the vice president.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people didn't know. I think people were totally ignorant. They didn't know.
I saw her first name and I thought, oh, she's Indian.
Mm-hmm.
Robbie, that's all right. Some people don't know that West Virginia is a state.
That's true. I've gotten that so many times. I used to live in Rhode Island, and I had made a phone call to California to order some part for something that I wanted. And they said, Rhode Island, where is Rhode Island? And I said, what part of the world is that? And I said, it's in the United States. And this woman didn't know Rhode Island. She just thought it was an island, like the one behind me. Anyway, so some of the provisions that ACA has made about culturally different people is that they might have ways that they want to give you thanks. And there should be a policy if you belong to an organization should have a policy. What amount of money or what value are you willing to accept as a thank you for saving my life, or thank you for saving my son's life? Some culturally different from American have offered ornate, expensive rugs for people, like, you know, a couple of $1,000 rugs. Is that acceptable to you? Or is there a limit that you want to put as an organization? Say no more than $50, not even cash. You can give us a gift card to Lowe's or flowers. How do you determine? And the reason why this is becoming an issue is the culturally different people from Americans are bringing gifts. Sometimes it's hard for us to see the dollar value in it, and should we accept that? One of the therapists that I know had a client from St. Vincent Island. I have been to St. Vincent Island. It's in the Caribbean, one of the rural ones, and they're kind of a very, very small island, very poor island, and they lived here in Charleston, and what they brought as a gift to the therapist was a goat.
I would love that gift. I would love that gift.
I would like that in a freezer bag, please. But so what we're realizing as professionals is our sense of gratitude from other countries and other cultures are very meaningful for them to give. Particularly when sessions have ended, or there may be a holiday. And don't expect you're going to get a Christmas card and some gift, and you may get a Christmas card and a gift every year for the next 5 to 7 years. So you never know. That's part of my culture. And the way they do that is, my culture, we want to cook food and bring it to you guys. And if you ever are in Charleston, you want to stop by my house. If you like Indian food, yeah, my wife, she's an American. When you ask her, where do you want to go to your Mother's Day or birthday? Always Indian food. And when I want to go for Father's Day, I say, how about a steak? I'm tired of that Indian food. So just to be sensitive on how you might reject a gift, that becomes a professional responsibility. You know, you don't want to make them feel bad or never come back. And also you want to honor their culture because they're honoring you for what you have done for them. So let me stop there and see if there are other issues that you have encountered working with culturally different people from you.
I guess my experience has been essentially gift giving. And I really don't accept gifts. It's just, I've just felt more comfortable like that. I know some therapists who are very comfortable with it. I said, well, what about our code of conduct, Andrea? They just really appreciated what I did. I'm not really focusing on a code of conduct right now. I said, well, what if they gave you more? You know, more of an elaborate gift, more than a cake, or more than a flower, or more than this. They said, well, then I would think about it. But right now, she didn't feel like a flower or a scarf or what else others have received. I'll accept the cards, but I just feel as though boundaries are interrupted adversely when you start accepting gifts. So I don't feel comfortable accepting gifts.
So
I don't know the code. I've been trying to look at these numbers. I can't look them up.
So that might be something you may want to right off the bat, put that guideline out there so they're not at the end feeling like they brought something on their last session and you're going to say no.
Yes, I usually establish that in the beginning. You know, what are the rules? You know, what are the boundaries? What will you expect of me? What can I expect of you? That's usually as we're talking about confidentiality and things like that.
Okay. Excellent.
I think in, in the area where I'm in, it's not so much, monetary gifts or even gifts that cost money, but here, it's, the poverty rate is so high. If there's gifts given, then it's something that somebody made, something that they crocheted, something that they had planted themselves, or, eggs that they have brought in from their chickens. So I feel like, if it was more than that, like we were discussing, I would have to have the conversation like, oh, I'm very sorry. I can't ethically accept this. I really appreciate what you're doing for me. But when they put so much of themselves into one of those like homemade gifts, like I mentioned earlier, I feel like it would be damaging to the relationship to say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't accept any gift from you.
So the only thing that I'm here to tell you is they're giving us some wiggle room from the code of conduct and code of ethics from ACA. So you can accept without, we used to be, before there's this do not accept anything at all. Even in the hospital, we don't accept pens from other vendors, but if patients' families want to bring a cake or donuts that they want to send from wherever, Pizza Hut or, Krispy Kreme, we accept those kinds of things and said they just want to show. And we don't want hundreds of dollars, but if it's under $50, we're okay. But we put that in a guideline. And so if you do not have that, a good thing to do as your organization, do it. So I have 2 slides. I'm going to read this off and we'll be done because it's 4:27. This is nationally. Now, I gave you before state, and this is the national complaints against LPCs. Number 1 was practicing without a license. There's nothing you can do. The board can't do anything practicing without a license. 27% of the complaint. Sexual relationship with the client, 20%. Other, poor standard of care. Now, I don't know what that means. All I know is my guess would be at best, somebody was not certified or qualified to do something and they were doing their job. And inadequate, number 10 is other, poor standard of care, violation of ethical code, inadequate supervision. So I don't have a supervisor because I'm in private practice. Where do I go to get some help? I have to have another LPC. That I have a friend who she moved now to Charlotte, North Carolina. She calls me, I call her and say, I'm having problems with this. I don't know what to do. So if you're in private practice, always have another LPC who would be able to help you out. Inappropriate fees assessment, 12%. Dual relationship, I don't know what that means, 7%. And failure to inform clients of the goals. We talked about this, and techniques. What are you good at? How are you trained? These are the ways that I work, but it might not work with you. But my job is to find someone for you that'll work for you. That's one of the things I always say. If we don't click, let me do some work and get somebody else. Breach of confidentiality, 5%. Failure to report abuse, I was shocked, 4%. Now, when we say abuse, you know, we're talking not just about children, we're talking about the elderly and handicapped people who cannot speak for themselves and defend for themselves. Failure to report clear and imminent danger, 2%. I think we should always get some education about what is the clear and imminent danger. How do you define, what's the definition of it? And ACA does give you that. Failure to properly form and facilitate groups. If you've never run a group, don't run a group. You're not qualified to run a group. And so those are national things that I wanted to share with you, what's going on the broad. So this is the end of my presentation. I want to thank you for a grueling session that you bore yourself through and stayed here with me, and I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys have a good evening, and
You too.
we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Where do we go next? We go somewhere
Well,
else.
4:45, actually at 4:30 now, we're going to switch over to the main channel for another meet and greet. That's optional. 4:45, there's an optional networking with sponsors and exhibitors. So I've got to run over to the main channel real quick.
Okay.
Thank you.